Thank you for coming to listen. I'm going to be talking about becoming the next climate advocate, and you might be intrigued why I'm talking about that subject as somebody from the RAU. But I'm going to be talking about how some of our new degree programs are focused on climate advocacy. So we're here today to introduce the importance of food and farming to climate crisis and what can be done about it and what our role is all in that process. So, just need to introduce myself. My name's David Main. I'm a Professor of Animal Welfare at the Royal Agricultural University, and I've got an interest in how animal welfare works in the supply chain, how standards are important in the supply chain, and how society interacts with that and makes the right choices that are right for animals, but also right for the planet, and also right for farmers, of course. So, what I want to talk briefly is the important thing about whether food and farming is part of the problem or part of the solution, how we all can be climate advocates in our role as consumers, but also our role as citizens. And finally, I'm going to talk about how university education can help you be a climate advocate and with reference to one of our new degree programs. So food and farming, how important that is to the climate crisis. This is a bit of data that's in the National Food Strategy. I'm sure you guys were familiar with it. In the UK in 2008, food emissions made up 19% of our carbon emissions. Actually, it's 30% if you include imports. So you can't really avoid the fact that the food and farming sector is a really important part of the mix in our climate impact. So that's a fair old chunk, and what could be done about it? Well, I noticed several of you wearing an NFU badge today, so I'm going to highlight the role of the NFU here. 3 cheers. So the NFU has set a standard for achieving net zero in 2040, which is 10 years ahead of the government's position, which is 2050. So it was a very bold statement. And of course, the pitch to society is that farming is part of the solution to climate change because it's all about carbon capture. It's about taking that, growing plants, putting this carbon into the soil. And also, we have to realise and recognise it's about minimising the negative impacts. So on the stand, we're talking about the impact of meat products, etc., on the planet. And realising that we've all got a part to play, and definitely food and farming is part of that mix. So, what is the role of consumer? Well, the arguments that many people talk about is the fact is meat is bad for the planet, and so in the BBC climate change calculator, for example, it rates beef and lamb very highly. With vegetarian products, peas, beans, etc., are very low impact. Actually, this data is based on other more complicated data. This is just simple means. And actually, the data is something a bit more like this. I don't know if you've ever played with this sort of data. This is a lovely graphic, something from our World in Data, which allows you to really get under the data and really understand what's in there. And it shows the range. So the point is, although beef may be the largest greenhouse gas impact, it has a very large range in production systems. But then, of course, vegetarian products are low. So consumers quite clearly have a role to play here. And so many groups are advocating less but better meat products. The other part of the story about how to make a difference for the climate is to recognise we've all got a role as citizens. So DEFRA, I'm sure you'll be well aware, has been very active in this. So has environmental targets. It quite rightly is interested in soil because that's the source of carbon sequestration, and also it has defined priorities for the animal health and welfare pathway. We've been involved in setting those priorities as well. So what I want to do is just talk about our program called Environment, Food and Society, which is actually aimed at people that trying to understand what is the impact of food on big issues like climate change and what they can do about it. So we have a module, rather controversially, talking about advocacy and activism. I wanted to have the whole degree talked about agricultural activism, but funnily enough, that was a stretch too far. But actually, I was trying to make the point that activism is a real part of either one needs to understand what activism is, or one wants to participate in activism, or actually recognise that in our own organisations we are activists. So the NFU is a classic activism organisation, I would say. And so this module, over a 12-week period, allows the students to really understand and get under the skin of what activism actually is and how it can influence policy. So it's a bit of a unique degree. There's not many undergraduate degrees that would have this as their primary focus. And so we cover lots of different case examples. So here's a case example which is about genetic selection of chicken. I don't know if anybody knows anything about chicken, but there's been a huge growth in chicken consumption in the UK and globally. The blue is what the chicken consumption growth has been, and it's growing 10% a year, has been growing for a long time, and is predicted to grow at this huge rate. Part of that success is the genetic selection, which is dominated by two very large chicken companies, and they have selected chickens to be very fast growing, very efficient, which is good for a climate change point of view because you'll have less resources that go into the product, but they grow very fast. And so now we have chickens that are mature at 40 days, which is they're babies, and yet they're ready to go at 40 days. But this is actually controversial because it's been flagged up by the animal welfare groups as an indication of a problem for the birds, and the welfare science is actually there that it is a problem for the birds. So this data here shows the percentage of birds that choose to sit on a bale, just an ordinary small bale, and chickens, like many other birds, at night are very motivated to perch. They're hugely motivated. They really want to perch, and they'll step up and they'll perch up. So in a laying hen shed, they'll all be perching at night. But these birds, only the ones with the bars here are able to use the bale, and these are the slow-growing breeds. The fast-growing breeds, which are the standard product, can't get up on the bale. They want to get up on the bale, and if they are grown at a slower rate, they will use a bale. So it definitely is a problem for the birds. It definitely changes their behaviour, and it definitely is a problem for them. They have also 16% lameness in these fast-growing birds compared to 4% lameness in slow-growing birds. So it absolutely is a problem. There's no point in denying it is a problem. But actually, as the NFU has pointed out, twice I've quoted NFU, there is an opposite view here, and the fact that these fast-growing birds are cheaper to produce, and they have a beneficial impact on the environment, in as much as there's a 20% increase in greenhouse gas impact for those birds that are slower growing. So fast-growing birds are bad for the animals, but they're better for the planet, and they're cheaper to produce. The amount of cheapness, but it's actually only 34p a bird difference in price. And yet that actually, when you look at the supermarket, the markup is much greater than that. So actually, many of the retailers are taking excess margin on those birds which have higher welfare. So this has received a lot of attention. The animal welfare groups have been lobbying away, and it has led to organisations like KFC. Some of the retailers have signed up to the Better Chicken Commitment, which is using the slower growing breed by 2024. And rather amazingly, the government also committed to the Better Chicken Commitment, which is using a slower growing breed as part of its financial investments, part of the public goods story that Michael Gove introduced. Of course, we have no idea whether that's actually going to happen. We're all waiting to see what policy changes DEFRA are going to do. But this is the type of case example we use because it is a real interesting mix of both consumer preference or not for different products, Also, the retailers, the market, the restaurants having different choices, choosing fast-growing chickens or not, and the government, in their role of citizens, having an influence, also having a view on whether we choose fast-growing chickens or not. Lastly, just as an example, which we do obviously in undergraduate programs, we do lots of dissertation projects where students get to do things. I just use this as a potential example here. This is a Nomo project. I noticed the Plant Life are here and they're advocating a Nomo work, which is basically about in the springtime, you don't need to mow everything to death. You can actually let things flower and grow. And so around the campus, some of you RAU graduates will recognise the campus. So as part of the campus was either mown or not mown. And this is work our scientists done working with students and showing that in the blue rather than the red, the amount of nectar concentration, i.e. flowers, the floral abundance in the areas that weren't mown are very significant. So it actually makes a significant contribution to biodiversity in that area by a very simple little step of not mowing. And actually, but I'm using it here as an example of a project that students can get involved in. That is quite simple to do, quite a powerful and a nice simple story, and get a publication too. So what I just wanted to do to talk today was to realise that actually food and farming is definitely part of the problem. Yes, it is. But it is also part of the solution. There are lots of efforts to increase the carbon sequestration activity, for example. We all have a role to play, and for young people, that's understanding their role as both consumers and as citizens. And finally, I wanted to flag that actually university education has a role in helping people understand advocacy and activism, which is a really important part of farming today. Apply that theory to a real case example, which in this case I've just used chickens, and also your ability to undertake research. So that's all I wanted to do today, was outline some of the things that we're doing at the RAU to engage people in this societal challenge, which is a societal challenge, and what an exciting time it is to do that. Thank you very much. Happy to take any questions if you have any questions. Okay. Yeah.
The Better Chicken pledge, is that like a third-party company or charity organization that's done that, and companies are signing up to it, or is it like an industry?
No, it's a collaboration of animal welfare charities primarily. They actually got together, primarily actually led by RSPCA in the UK, but it's actually a European commitment. And the animal welfare charities came together and said, technically, what is the specific thing that we're looking for? And it was around this genetics. There's one other two technical requirements. Then they, as a collaboration, went out and campaigned for it separately. So targeting those retailers, etc. So that's the target. And it's actually an American campaign too. So in America, Compassionate World Farming are leading that, and they've got big companies to sign up. So for example, Subway has signed up to it. And so in America, the primary target is large companies, but this is not a minor thing. In the Netherlands, all of their fresh retail chicken is better chicken. You can't buy non-better grown chicken in Netherlands.
Do you think in the UK, with DEFRA's position on it, is it likely to come policy so you won't be able to buy non-better
a month
chicken
ago, I would have said yes. Now I say no. I'm not convinced. I'm really suspicious that those priorities are not going to come good. We'll see.
Thank you.